Welcome to Caffeinated Mornings, a show built around the idea of more conversation and less presentation. We dive deeper into discussions that go beyond the surface of the work. A big thank you to our sponsors who make this show possible. Today's episode is brought to you by the award-winning, strategically driven, independent, full-service agency TDA Boulder. And we can't forget Buck Ross Productions and Coop Studios for helping us capture and share this show with you. A special thanks to The Coffee Ride for keeping us caffeinated, and to Realtor Michelle Sander and the Zeal Group at RE/MAX, CMCI Studio, Snappy Little Numbers for our theme music, and Pro Photo Rental for their continued support. In this episode, we join everyone's favorite designer and host, Jay Farrakane, for an inspiring and down-to-earth conversation with illustrator and designer Amanda Lenz. Amanda shares her journey from working in traditional agency roles to launching her own studio, blending purpose with design. She opens up about working on what you love, personal projects, self-doubt, the importance of community, and how staying curious has shaped her career path. So, get comfortable, get caffeinated, and get ready to be inspired and informed with our newest friend, Amanda Lenz. Let's go.
Hello. Cool. All right. Welcome, Amanda. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Caffeinated Mornings. I'm Jay Farrakane. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I run a small studio called Angry Bovine. I started Caffeinated, I think 13 years ago. It's the longest running show you've never heard of. And it was just my way of trying to bring our creative community together on a regular basis. And here you all are. So thank you all for being here. How many first timers today? Excellent. Breakdown audience. How many designers in here? Okay. Developers, illustrators, photographers. Nice. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Since this is community, I know everyone out there, our lives all depend on the work we do. So if anyone is looking for work or is hiring, that would be really cool. Introduce yourselves to everybody in this room and share, because the more people you know, the more likely you are to find that work that we all need. So make that happen. I'm also faculty here at CMCI Studio. Technically, we're on the campus of CU right now. CMCI Studio is a graduate program that is what used to be called journalism up on the hill there. And we're kind of shaping the next world of creative people to go out and make the next things happen. How many studio faculty or students do we have in here? Former students and active. Nice. Super cool. Okay, got a couple. So if you want to learn more about the studio program, Parisa is here. There she is. Find Parisa. She is the knowledge source for everything studio and CMCI. And I do want to give a shout out to Lexi Frederick, who is not here today, but thanks to Lexi, we are now on Spotify and Apple. So you can check out all of our shows that are being archived there. So it's a monthly program. Make it part of your listening route. Big thank you to Lexi, though. She just couldn't be here today. And then thank you to all our sponsors. We're flattered to be so well supported. TDA Boulder for their ongoing support over the years. Thank you, Buck Ross team, for always just holding it down with us and the weird stuff that happens in the mornings here. Coop Studios for giving us awesome sound. The Coffee Ride. Where's Josh? Did he leave? Josh at the Coffee Ride there he is. For amazing coffee and caffeinating us. Pro Photo and Visible Window Boulder Office of Arts and Culture, and Chuck Coffee of Snappy Little Numbers for giving us our own official theme song. And then lastly but not least, my favorite, your favorite realtor, my favorite wife, Michelle Sander, Porchlight Realty for all your front range real estate needs. Give her a holler. Okay, we got through that all. So I'm honored to share the space here with fellow creatives and builders to learn their stories and share that experience with all of you. So I really do like to thank all of you for being here. Thank you very much. And thank you, Amanda, for being here. I'm going to get into that part. I'm going to get into that part where I do the awkward intro while you're sitting right here and you have to listen to it and you're like, Jay, is that really accurate? I'm not sure. Anyway, so here we go. So a little bit about our guest today. Amanda Lenz is an illustrator and designer whose work moves effortlessly between brand storytelling and children's books. Her distinct style is probably most associated with her illustrations. But she is an experienced designer who works across many mediums, from environments to packaging, catalogs to logos and more. With roots in fine art and a background in graphic design, Amanda's built a career fueled by curiosity, personal projects, and a strong belief in the power of sketching. She's also worked with a world-class brands and been featured, world-class brands like Adobe. She's been featured, her art has been featured in things like Time. And she's just as passionate about supporting local businesses and community-driven efforts, especially when it comes to creating more heartfelt, heart-forward, character-rich visuals for young audiences. And so we're super excited to have you here today. And I think the one way to introduce you a little bit for those that don't know you is to do probably another one of these like awkward things, but we're going to do a quick run through your work here.
Thank you.
See, now you guys are all going to want one of these sketchbooks that Amanda's thoughtfully made for everyone. So if you guys want to pass those around, there's probably one for everybody.
Absolutely. There's more if that one goes out.
Cool. Well, we're back. Thank you so much for being here. I'm always interested in how and when creatives like find their start and know that the world of creativity and making things is like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Tell us a little bit about your creative beginnings. I know it started really early for you.
I don't really remember a point where I wasn't at least a drawer. I was the kid who was drawing in the bathtub and accidentally on the walls and
with like markers and stuff?
Yes, that's how I got in trouble.
This.
Yeah. And I'm an only child, so they would ask me if I did that and I would lie and say no.
The neighbor kids were here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I knew that was always something that I was good at and something that I loved. So it was very early. It took me a while to know what design was. I grew up in West Virginia, and it just wasn't a word or an occupation that we thought about a ton.
Yeah.
I knew that I loved drawing, but I also knew that at some point I had to make a living. And so when I was probably in high school, I heard of design. And I thought, this could be something. And so that's when I sort of made my way toward design, but always knowing that I wanted to continue drawing as part of that practice.
It's funny. I had a similar conversation. I started in illustration and made my way into design because I sat at school going like, dude, what do we do after this? Like, and then some people were like, oh, you just go to more school. And I'm like, I gotta go. And I literally asked the question and they're like, oh, you should think about design. So it's funny that we both have to get to that recollection of like, how am I going to make money doing this? So, so in this path of always wanting to be a creative, like, did you purposely pattern your education path, like to facilitate that? Or was it more happenstance? Or I'm always curious on like the how and why of people ending up in the formality of education that leads to creative.
Right. Oh,
there we
go. I'm quiet, so I'm just going to like hug this thing.
You're doing great.
Let's see.
Was because like you went to DU.
I went to DU, which was interesting, an interesting choice now that I look back on it, because the program was called Electronic Media Arts Design. So it was, I mean, I'll date myself, it was like early 2000s. And I think they just didn't sort of know what to do with us. They were like, it's electronic, you're doing new media stuff. Yeah. There's some design thrown in too, but you're going to learn Flash and you're going to learn Dreamweaver. And so it was language. It was just a hodgepodge of, but it was also really nice and liberating because they let us choose our path too. So it was more about figure out how to make the thing that you want to make.
Well, and that move to digital, as my own background of someone who sketches a lot, and I came from more of a fine art side just because of the things I was interested in. Did you find that you kept that more hand part of your work? Was that different than everybody else's? Were other people functioning in that same way? And when I say the hand part, I mean like more illustrations being brought in or scanned and paintings.
I think so, partially because I held on to the drawing and painting part. And I was constantly, I feel like at that time too, it was a little bit liberating because the software didn't always do what you wanted it to do. So sometimes you put the project in, you got out what you wanted to get out, and then you went back to traditional media too. So you could kind of do this push and pull in both ways to figure out how to get to the end point that you wanted.
I was always super jealous too of, I had a few, in my graphic design program, there was one particular more illustration leaning student who was also really good at digital. And so he would scan paintings in and do color corrections and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And he had this real back and forth strategy where mine was more like straight through. I would sketch something and put it in, and then it would only move from there to further digital, where he really always existed in this constant world back and forth. Is that where your kind of craft exists today?
I think so, but now that we're having this conversation, it's a really good reminder to me because the more you do something, you kind of put your process in stone. And so sometimes it's good to get out of that and refresh a little bit. Because I would say now that I always start traditionally, I always start with sketchbooks and thumbnailing, but more often the final has been in digital for a while. So I'm going to have to go back and see if that could be a new process.
It's an interesting topic about process too, because I remember when I got out of design school, I wanted to be the edgy designer and I don't have any process and I'm wild and whatever, you can't contain me. Then I realized at some point, like no matter where you are in your project, I'm like, oh shit, I have a process. I'm in discovery right now, or I'm in, and I think we get taught that process is a very fixed object. And then someone kind of alluded to the fact that, this can change, right? And they kind of use this analogy of more of like an accordion, that like some parts discovery is very compressed and then the effort to make final is like, whatever all those parts are. And I was kind of like half disappointed, but then also like meaning like, oh, I feel like a fucking grown up now. I have a process. That's lame. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good thing because as we do a day job. But do you feel like your process is really consistent, or does it have a lot of flexibility, more accordion than fixed object? That's a dumb analogy, but you know what I'm talking about. Right? Yeah.
I would say it, in a lot of ways, it's fixed. It does depend on the project. And if I have to revisit discovery or anything like that. But I would say it's gotten more fixed. And I think part of that is experience, and that's okay. Just knowing how to get to the destination.
I think it makes it easier to like make it a monetizable thing with some prediction on, am I making $12 an hour on this, or am I making like a lot more? So
now I would say like personal work, sometimes you can let the accordion go a little bit too.
We're going to come back to personal work because I'm very interested in that. One of the things that I'm curious in your kind of like more formative years, were there other creatives or influences that you were like looking at that affected your work? Can you see it? Can you see their work in your work?
Yeah. I think one that is pretty, maybe kind of lame because he's so well known, but Van Gogh. Just
I see that actually.
All of the painters, like that movement, those shapes, collage artists for sure. And then, of course, now that I'm doing more children's work, it's the Sendaks and the Potters and all of the children's legends, really, that maybe not stylistically or inspiring, but just the amount of work, what hard workers they are, and like pacing and character things
And we
like
talked
that.
a lot about that like, I feel like the heroes I had in design, I've even seen myself patterning things like pacing and stuff like that. How would so-and-so have done, some paginated thing where you take them through this big explosion to something quiet. Do you feel like you developed that pattern by looking at influences? Because I actually really can look at your work and see that patterning or pacing is a big part of like your thought process.
I think that has exploded more with looking. I have done a lot of print work and a lot of publication design and doing all the type layout for that. So it's always kind of been something that I've thought about. Now that I do more children's work, I think about it constantly. And I do read a lot of children's books. I did before I had a son. Now I just read it. That's all I read. I'm thinking about pacing all the time. And I'm thinking about how that works when I'm looking to design websites or any other kind of narrative experience.
I feel like when my kids were little and I was reading books to them, I have an eye for like, is this a good layout or is this story even any good? Do you find yourself more or less judgmental now when you're reading books and you're like, this is terrible, I'm not reading this to him? Are you judgy on it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm very judgy. But I would say I surprise myself because my husband reads a lot of them. And there's a lot of authors and books that I looked over personally and I was like, whatever. And having him read it is like, I get it now. I get why this is a special book or books that my son relates to really well. So it's really eye-opening to see.
You have your own user group now?
Yeah, I have a test group for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you read the classics too, like Where the Wild Things Are and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are some like syntax, like little bears, like what is it, Three Little Bears or something? Brilliant.
Yeah.
But some of them are hilarious too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think that those things, as a visual person, those have stuck in my and I don't remember anyone like formally sitting down with me and like reading those things, but I remember when Where the Wild Things movie came out, I was so excited as like a semi-grown person to go and like see that because I was like, I need to see this like move and I don't know, it was it's connected
soundtrack.
to
Yeah. And all the creative things going.
So early on, we've talked about like influences and stuff like that. Were there early projects or mentors to you that were like pivotal in a way that you were like, and these can be educators too, that you were like, yeah, that was the defining moment where I feel like creatives a lot of times have these opportunities or something where now that we're more mature and we can look back, you're like, I think that was the part where I got challenged or pushed to do something I might not have done, and it really opened the door.
I mean, I think I've been fortunate to have a lot of mentors. Some of them are here. But there was one project really early on when I was interning at a studio called To Communicate that was here in Denver. And it was for a symphony that happens in Maine. So it was a poster and a small program. And they let me do what I wanted to do. Like I kind of presented sketches and then I built this thing in Illustrator out of tons of shape layers. It was an enormous vector file. And my creative...
We need like a supercomputer for it to like open the file. Yeah. I've built those
but I was
before.
basically trying to paint with vectors. And my creative director was like, yeah, I thought you were over there like playing a video game because it was just like... But that was really pivotal for me to start thinking, how do I work with vectors or illustration in a way that works with design, how it needs to operate, but then also has a more organic human feeling. So more like painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting that you use that phrase too of like, they let me do what I wanted to do. And we talked about that. Like when people approach you and you're like, just do what you would do for yourself is probably one of the most dangerous creative briefs you can ever get. But I think most creatives I know walk around the world going like, if someone would only let me do what I want. And I think there's a big, the achievement that gets unlocked, if you will, is like when people take that responsibility. Because I've known a lot of people have been offered it and not everyone has taken the opportunity.
Sure.
And because even though we run around with it in our head. And so it's interesting
Yeah,
that
I think
you were
it's kind of scary.
it's terrifying,
Yeah.
actually, yeah. So on personal projects, I once heard this really great interview question that the person who was interviewing the interviewee said, "What are you working on when you're not working?" And I always thought that what a killer question, because this was a famous ad agency dude, and he was interviewing people because he wanted to know what they were they thinking about work when they weren't working, like, and how was it like feeding their creative side. And I know you have a strong opinion about personal projects and the impacts they've had on your careers. And I wanted to talk about Ladies I Love, because I feel like that was one of your very first. And this is a portraiture project. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So I started wanting to do more illustration work as a designer. And so I started building projects for myself as to have portfolio work and to kind of just stretch myself a little bit. And so I started a project called Ladies I Love, doing portraiture of people like Georgia O'Keeffe or Jane Goodall, different poets and things like that, and just posting that work. And
you're just posting to Instagram and stuff.
I just posted to Instagram and my own website, and I got work from it. I've done a few portraiture books and had different portrait clients, and even did a cover for Time. And that's how that art director found me. And personal projects have been a really big thing for me, because as a designer, knowing that I wanted to do more illustration work, I couldn't wait for opportunities to arise, partially because people don't trust that you can do it if you haven't already done it. So it's like sort of
that's the catch-22.
Hole in the bucket kind of situation. So I knew that I had to make the work if I was going to start transitioning to getting the work. And so Ladies I Love was one of them. But then I remembered another. I worked on a Colorado-themed coloring book and journal, and I got that published through a publisher, which was its own journey. And that led to...
You self-published that? You self-published that?
No.
Okay.
It's through it was a local publisher, but now it's been bought. Anyway.
Yeah.
And that led to working on some Colorado-themed project, and then the Welcome Center map is how they found me to do that work.
It's fascinating too, because I often have people starting out in design ask me portfolio questions and all that kind of stuff, and it's fascinating to me because that story there proves out what's a portfolio and what's not a portfolio today in the creative person's diaspora, if you will, and so Instagram, finding out that you can post work there, and in this kind of I think there's a currency about it too, and it excites me to hear, and maybe this was before the algorithms and stuff kicked in, but that's what you hope will happen when you post work.
Right.
We know that we love it when our design friends go, hey, they give us a little heart for a logo we worked on, but it's even cooler when someone's like, would you like to do that for me? So that's really cool. So how do you approach personal work today? Do you think about it in the same sense of, I got to do work to get work? Or is it more skill building? Is it more of you're trying to get more of a certain type of work? Is it all of the above? Or how do you kind of look at that effort?
I think it is all of the above. Right now, I have a personal project, which is a deck of cards that I personally wanted to do more painting, so they're all painted.
Even the face side too? Everything?
Yeah, and it's animals, so I'll tell you more about it when it comes out. But
cool. That's going to be your next giveaway. Will be decks of
maybe.
Cards.
If you're really good. So that's a personal project. My sketchbook is always a personal, ongoing project. The other thing, doing children's work, it feels like a continuum of making new work. That's kind of personal children's work. Whether you're trying to write a book dummy or putting up new portfolio work. So it's just kind of a continuation of putting fresh things out.
Yeah, there's the business of how do I market myself, right? So now you're busy with work. You're a mom.
Yeah.
How do you balance the creative self-exploration, kind of I want to keep doing these personal projects?
I don't think I'm doing great.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I learned that I don't really have to sleep that much. It's not great functioning, but it works. But I
think
think
it's a gift for some creative people because like I'm the same a little bit.
yeah. I think I realized that I'm capable of more than I thought, which is good. And so that is helpful. And I think with experience and probably the extra pressure of being a mom and having limited time, there's a clarity in that. There's things that I can give my attention to, and there's things that I can't. And so the projects that I'm choosing, work is work. I do still have to make income. And so not all of my projects are perfect. A lot of them are great. But the personal work has to be more focused for me to spend time and energy on.
Interesting. I think counterintuitively, most people would probably say that the personal work is more loose or in some way, but you mean it's more focused and like I'm dedicating time to this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I could totally see. But then again, it comes back to where we started with, even with process of like, hey, now not knowing this is how it fits, but I have an hour to work on personal projects. And I don't know if it's even that formal in your brain, because sometimes I'll go, dude, that meeting just canceled. What are we going to work on? And then I'll dive into something, usually like a personal project or something like that. So do you find that that's how you're kind of like making the time?
Yeah, I think so. Or it's kind of serendipitous, like something fell off my calendar. And so I'm sitting here and I slide the thing over and I work on it. I try to do dedicated time to work on, and mostly sketchbooks, because I know that practice is so important.
Have you found yourself ever kind of like looking at those? I don't know if everyone's seen these timelines of when great thinkers or makers worked. Have you ever seen these schedules? It's fascinating. The majority of them worked early in the morning or late at night, and the middle of the day was like naps and meetings and stuff like that. I'm always curious about like time. Like I personally, I don't have a boss other than myself, and he's terrible. But I like to be at my desk at 10, and I work literally till 5. More often than squared up at 5, I'll like start thinking about leaving, but I always go back after like the house calms down and stuff. Do you find yourself? What's your work pattern like?
My work pattern is sometimes do like an hour of emails in the morning if I can squeeze it in. And then it depends on like nanny schedule at this point.
Yes.
Big time. But then work a chunk, like a 5-hour chunk in the day, and then often come back around 9. And whatever I need to kind of wrap up is what I need to wrap up. I would say, like, part of it is kind of a bummer to not have as expansive days of work that I used to. But I am pretty focused in that time. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah. There's a funny phenomenon around time that I've really been dwelling on lately. And I used to be the guy that was like, I called it working like a garbage man. Garbage men get paid 8 hours, and if they get it done in 4, they go home early.
Yeah.
And I was like, isn't that great? We had all this extra time. And now I'm like, you know what? There is only so much time. Design's a vacuum, if you ask me. It will fill whatever time it has. And I'm like, I work up to the last minute now. And I'm like kind of cool with that. And I used to find I wanted this luxurious space around the work. And I think I still somewhere desire that, but I don't think I require it to be the only way I can work these days, because there's not a lot of luxury for me around time.
Right.
And that's obviously the story you're talking about.
It is, but there's a children's author that I love named Claudia Mills, and I heard her speak once, and her big thing was do the creative thing first, because what you have to get done, you will get done. So I try to keep that in mind too, of like, do the thing that kind of fills me up or that don't always make space for, because I will get the other stuff done.
I think I'm the opposite. I do what I call design calisthenics, like in the morning. Like I work through edits and stuff like that, and I get them out of the way because the pleasure is invention or space to.
There's it's something really nice about that too.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So in like the world of like AI bots and apps and new tools and whatever, sketching is like such a big part of your thing. I love it. It's analog. It's a very important part of my own process. All your projects start at sketching. How far out? Tell us a little bit about the sketching process for you. Why it's so critical to what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I start just kind of downloading ideas immediately. I don't look at anything else to start. I'll start thumbnailing. I'll start getting a sense of whether it's a character, a logo, or a piece of branding before I even do a mood board. Just so I can start really thinking about what's in my head and just kind of kick that project off, and it sets my brain going and gives it kind of a physical space. And
when you say a physical space, like a dedicated sheet
like
of paper,
it
or
lives in it lives
it's
in
it's all in your
something.
sketchbooks, right? You actually, that's your substrate is sketchbooks.
Yeah, I always have a small enough sketchbook to take with me, and something that doesn't feel precious. Like, I'm a mechanical pencil user. I use sheets of random paper lying around because the precious sketchbooks are too anxiety driven for me.
Yeah.
So it has to be
I
kind
don't
of
want to put anything bad in here.
yeah.
I think that's a terrifying thing. I know that when I took my faculty role at used to be called BDW, Boulder Digital Works.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, I'm not going to take this job because, like, so much of my start process is analog. It's sketching and things like that. And I told that to the dean, and he's like, no, dude, like, it's just our name. Like, you can work with students in your way.
Yeah.
But then I found that this preciousness thing is really interesting about sketching, because when I talk to people about sketching, I think a lot of people are shy from sketching because they want it to be this precious piece of art that anyone could look at and unpack or publish or whatever it is. But the sketching to me is like, it's like thinking visualized, right? And so, like, I always tell people, if you can start your idea in pudding, then do it. But you need to be the one that can, like, register the information out of it to go do something next with it. How does that? What's the kind of evolution? How loose are they from? Like, and where does the formality start for you?
A lot of times it's just thumbnails. So it's just like really getting the composition. Is this thing even going to work as a thumbnail? I feel like that really lets some ideas fall off really quickly on what I'm going to pursue next. And so I sketch a few pages initially of just thumbnails, and I circle the ones that I like the most, and then I'll probably take it into another drawing that's a little bit tighter. And from there, I'll decide if I need another tighter drawing, but I'm just kind of funneling the ideas that way. And, I think I can take on any AI bot faster. No, I'm not going to say that. But, like, it really does. It focuses the direction really immediately.
So I was going to ask the question if you see sketching more as like a thinking tool or a visual tool, and usually the answer is somewhere in between. But to me, I like that I hear it as almost a strategic tool, and I think that's where I come back to. The more we've talked, I'm realizing, like, oh, Amanda's more and more designer than I ever really imagined, because, like, you're using it as a strategic tool or a decision-making tool more than anything, right?
Right.
Yeah. That whittling out process was very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And the speed that comes out of it too.
Yeah, I feel like all creative pursuits have a lot of overlaps, right? So I think of sketching a lot like sculpting. So you're kind of starting out with something that's blank, basically, and you're kind of whittling it away into something that's going to function, so that when I get to the computer, the concept's there, the execution is partially there at least, if not. It depends on what it is. Like, if it's a children's book, I'm basically going into that for just final art.
An assembly, right?
Right.
Yeah, more of like production. So any tips for people that are intimidated by, like, sketching or drawing?
Oh, yeah, just start doing it. I mean,
It's pretty simple, right?
I would say for me, it's helpful to, like, even take the back of this sheet of paper, do something on something that's not precious. Take a sketchbook that's easy to have with you, that you don't care about. If you need to start in the middle, start in the middle. Like, give yourself little prompts. It doesn't matter what you're putting in there. If you need to start writing, do that. But a daily practice, when I'm in practice, is, I think, really life-changing as far as feeling confident in your ability to think through concepts and to iterate.
It's interesting that, the the whole notion of like the self-confidence it takes to kind of go and do that. And I think to me, the interesting thing about like, I think with illustration that might get a little bit different than like a design project is it is usually very, there's an inwardness to it. And I see like a lot of like empathy and heartfelt, and I don't mean this in any like negative way, but there's like a sweetness or a cuteness about the work. And I think you even phrased it as that, but I think that's innately you. And I think that's that we started having the discussion of there's this interesting slope that happens with like, I think the world you're in and design, because in some way, where does subjectivity get managed with objectivity? Most design exists in this world of objectivity, right? Okay, I chose blue for this brand because it's a trust color or whatever it is. It's defendable things you can say to your client. At the end of the day, it's all subjective though, right? Because someone might not like blue. But like in your world, you are having these very like, I would call them like inward thoughts as you're kind of thinking through in a complete narrative. One of the things again too that like made me start realizing, oh, Amanda's really a designer at the end of the day was you started talking a little bit about more of your ability to take feedback, which to me was almost like counterintuitive. Like, oh yeah, of course. She's a working creative professional. She has to take feedback. But your work has such like a flow and a sensitivity to it that it was almost hard for me to imagine what feedback looked like that. But tell them what you told me about like people kind of like baby gloving you for like, oh, we like your stuff and give them a little bit. This was interesting.
So it's been funny now that, I have a design background, so I'm very familiar with feedback and sometimes really scary, intense feedback. But I've noticed in the illustration world, and especially Kidlit too, is that people often are scared to give you feedback because they think it's your artwork. Mm-hmm. And I definitely am like, come on, give it to me straight. I can handle it.
Yeah.
And it is a funny thing because we are interpreting a lot visually. And so some of it doesn't land or some of it does. And I think at the end of the day, the same part of me that's a designer and an illustrator working for clients, you want to make the best thing. And I realized that that's working with really good art directors, and feedback is a really important part of that to make the best thing.
I liked it that you were like, give it to me straight though.
Yeah.
Because like I think a lot of times like why designers go to the objectivity world is to remove our egos from it in some way so we don't feel so hurt when we get, man, we really didn't like any of the logos you presented to us.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really telling that you're like, your work is so your work that you are like, no, still give it to me as a feedback. I was curious if you've ever gotten feedback that the client is, we really want, it's very prescriptive. And then do you do the thing? Because I feel like I've done this. I show them exactly what they asked for, and then I show them what they should do.
Yeah.
You've had this.
I do that all the time. I think a lot of times I'll go into it thinking, I'm going to do this just to show them that it's not going to work. And then halfway through, I'm like, damn it, it's working.
Yes, I know this world. It's kind of bums me out.
But it's hard to say. But I mean, the client they know their business really well too. Yeah. So the more I kind of come to realize that, the easier it is to accept feedback too. It's like, okay, we're going to explore that. And that's just part of this process.
Do you think that's a creative maturity thing? That you like would 10 years ago, Amanda, have felt the same about that kind of feedback?
Oh yeah, no, I would have been right 10 years ago, for sure. And sometimes I still feel right. And I still feel really attached to whatever.
I do think that's one of those wonderful pushing things that like why I look at my clients, I always call myself a catalytic designer, meaning I need them in the mix of things. But it's interesting to hear you say that too, because too, I've had this phenomenon happen very recently where I'm like, this is the worst feedback ever. And then you start working on it, and you're like, holy shit, it's like super working. So it was really funny to me that you said that. Have there been any moments in your career where like rejection, and not necessarily just feedback, but rejection has like propelled your career or improved the work? I know we just talked about an example of that, but have there ever been one where like, yeah, I'm so glad I walked away from that or whatever it was? And
wow. Yeah, actually I have a big one. And I would say like there's a lot of rejection, especially in illustration. And I've learned how to manage it better, which has been really good. But one of the big ones was early on in my career, like I had been a designer for probably about 4 years, professionally, and the recession hit. And I was unemployed, and I took like kind of a shitty job, and I was unhappy, and I wanted to go back to school, and I decided I wanted to get my master's in graphic design, and I didn't get in anywhere. And
So you applied to schools and
yeah, and I didn't get in, and it kind of forced me to stick with it and build out the career that I wanted more.
that's cool. Actually, it's funny because like, yeah, what would the shape have been if you had gone through a master's
Right.
program? Would you have been formally in graphic design, like doing super corporate stuff or
Right.
something like that? It's really interesting that those moments where we look at them as like, now what am I going to do? Well, you probably do what you've been doing all along too. That's a kind of a neat thing to like be able to, I don't know, it's a checkpoint.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
All right, so we do this kind of like choose them fun time kind of thing. So we're gonna kind of like it's a lightning round, if you will. So I'm gonna give you kind of 2 words. You pick them,
Okay.
choose them, laugh at them. But here we go. Art or design?
Yes.
Sketchbook or iPad?
Sketchbook.
Do you work on an iPad?
Absolutely.
Are you in a Procreate kind of flow from?
Yeah, I use
work?
Procreate or Fresco,
Okay.
which is Adobe's version.
Yes.
And I love to sketch on it too.
Yeah, but different world.
Yeah. So the sketchbook to me shows process. You can go back and look at, and in an iPad, you're constantly working over it so you don't get to go backward. And that information is really important, especially at the beginning. So I can go back and I can look at my thumbnail. I can look at this really quick sketch because there's an essence in those really quick sketches that you try to keep in your final art. So where was it working? You have that history where you don't always like save out a new layer
Yeah.
in the
That's fascinating because I've been working in design long enough that I worked in Photoshop when I had one undo. And so we had this thing that we called the Trail of Tears that we would just be like literally saving, because that was very critical in early design stuff, was be like, I think you had it on number 2. And so you would literally go back and like check it. I've never thought about the history of that like looking back in digital is different. Perfect typography or hand-drawn lettering?
I like both. I feel like typography is a skill that is not as highlighted anymore, and it hurts me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I noticed I was in Figma the other day, and maybe you guys are going to tell me, oh, Jay, there's a kerning tool in there. You can track letters, but you can't. I don't think you can kern. And it was actually like killing me because this one font just outputted type was terrible, big gaps in it and stuff. There was actually something about this notion of hand-drawn lettering with you that was interesting, as I was looking through your work as we've been leading up to this. And I had looked at the Telemadu, help me with this. Tullaby. And I thought this was just some beautiful kid's book. And I was like, oh my God, that's a brand book. I actually saw the words and I was like, that is so cool in a subjective, or like in a subversive, not subjective, in a subversive kind of way. As a kid who grew up listening to punk rock and stuff, I always like sneaking one in. And I felt like that is probably so that brand, but it came off more like a kid's book or something like that to me than a brand manual or something. And I'm like, that was a win. So when I saw that, I was like,
that's great.
She's going to answer hand-drawn lettering in this one. Client vision or creative instinct?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think they can be one and the same. It depends on the client. I mean, I think you and I talked about this too, is there's a hard moment where you pass over the work as a contractor, a freelance person, and you don't know whether it's going to fly or not. And so when client vision and your creative vision or whatever
Client vision or creative instinct or client vision. Yeah.
So when they come together, I think
that's that more assembly that you weren't in charge of. Because that scenario you're describing is probably you dropping off like, hey, I did all the art, but someone's going to put it in a book, right? Or arrange
or
it.
execute the brand book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Success or fulfillment?
Well, I think success is very subjective. So I would say fulfillment.
Because I think this is something I'm hearing from design students very recently is like, it isn't go get the job that is the most money. And I'm actually really happy to hear that. So
Yeah.
it's cool. We just talked about this, but children's book or brand book?
Ooh, I
Because
like
you proved
both.
me that these can be the same thing. Like I was
Yeah.
literally looking at your images last night and I was like, that's a brand book?
Yeah, I mean, I love both. Children's books, honestly, are the hardest thing I've ever worked on. And I love working on brand books. They scare me less than children's books.
How come they're the hardest? Why are they the hardest?
There's so much happening in one story. It's art, it's pacing, it's where the type goes, it's story, it's story arc, and all these things coming together. And then at the end of the day, is the kid going to like your book?
Yes, exactly.
So-
And now you have a test group for it. So you're like, hey, read this.
Yeah.
Do you ever test, like share visuals? And I know he's young, but like
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
it's coming though.
I feel like I'd put too much weight into it
Preston's
right
here
now.
somewhere. He judges the work I do all the time, my
Yay.
younger son. So
Yay.
he's like, I don't know about that, Dad.
I love that.
Personal project or paid gig? Which would you do?
I love personal projects that turn into paid work. So like the coloring book or something like that.
Yeah.
Something that has an end goal. And hopefully the new card deck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Over prepared or go with the flow?
Over prepared.
Really?
Yeah.
What's an over prepared look like? Showing up to the first meeting with a bunch of sketches or?
No, I try not to do work early on, but I would say just researching the client, getting like their initial thoughts and having at least like internal direction, knowing that that's really malleable. But yeah,
Gosh, I think I'm the opposite. Pen or pencil?
pencil,
Print or digital?
print.
Yeah, there's something so cool
Yeah.
about like, I don't know if it's that Warholian effect, but like seeing it in multiple too, like a stack of books or open a bunch of magazines and you see your ads in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there was a creative brief for this show, it would be leave inspired, get people ready to go out to do whatever you guys do at the end of your day, and just go out and be inspired when they get back to it. So how do you stay energized creatively? Like, are you looking at stuff? Is it getting out and physical activity? Like, how do you stay like
Yeah,
ready to do the stuff?
There's a lot of things. I mean, we live in a gorgeous place, so I love being outside. That feels like a really great space to think through things. And I work solo, so I try to be with people when I'm not solo. So whether that means my little family or I work with a crit group on kidlit stuff, and that kind of keeps me honest about my own personal deadlines and what I'm making. And then coming to events like this and different conferences, and really sketching. Sketching is just a really big component of my work.
That's neat. I'm always curious, like whether, you know, what it takes for people to, and for me, like even I work very similarly, solo in my own hole. And there's a joy of like, I didn't have to talk to anybody today, but then I can find out like the power of like forcing myself to get on the phone, how much more energy there is in the work, even if it's getting on a Zoom or something like that. So, so we all kind of hit these periods of like getting stuck. What's your kind of go-to methodology to get unstuck?
Yeah, I'm going to be annoying again and say sketchbooks because now I have a collection of them and I can go back and look at them. And sometimes they're funny because, you know, they were from 10 years ago. Or they're like, oh, yeah, I liked this idea. Or I'm going to return to something in here. And that's really helpful. And I think again, being outside helps me get unstuck, or even talking to someone else about what they're working on. And that comes back to like a crit group or a trusted group of friends. Like take yourself out of your own work for a little bit and dive into somebody else's, and even helping them problem solve or something, like it's like, oh yeah, I still got it.
Well, and I think that's a fascinating and really, I don't think creatives give themselves enough time to go back and look at successes or things that gave them happiness or joy. And I've never thought about going and looking back at my old sketchbooks. They just get kind of stuck in a drawer, and because I'm using them to, I don't look at them as history, and I need to start doing that more. So that's an awesome little insight. And we touched on this just a moment ago, but like you said, successful is kind of like something worth being defined, right?
Yeah.
So has your view of what it means to be successful changed over time?
Absolutely.
In what ways?
I think when I started out, my trajectory was more of trying to be a creative director level at an agency. And then slowly, I just didn't feel like I was, at the end of the day, my work and me as a person wasn't a great fit for something like that. And so I had to kind of find my own path to get to the work that I wanted to make and the clients I wanted to take too. And a lot of the clients that I love working on, like I'm starting another junior ranger book with a state park, they have tight budgets. And so like I've had to kind of calibrate those expectations too, because this is the kind of work I love doing. So there's like a balancing.
And I think, to what I was saying about students kind of like looking at what they want to do, I do think that's the choice that a lot of creatives have these days. There was this like painted picture, at least for me, that the creative director is where you want to go be at some point. And, and as I've kind of worked through it, like I remember seeing, if you remember Com Arts, the magazine, was like it was like our Bible, right? That got published. And there was an issue once that had all these roles on it. Do you remember this? It was an illustration, and the creative director was a dude gray beard, turtleneck, and he was holding a clipboard. And then on that clipboard was a spreadsheet. And I remember thinking it didn't even register, but I was like, man, this illustrator didn't even know what they're doing. And then I'm like, oh, creative direction is a like organization. And to me, I want to stay involved in the work. I became a designer to design. Do you feel that? I mean, you probably made that choice at some place.
Yeah.
And
I actually love giving direction now that I feel more comfortable doing it and like I have experience to share.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. But I love doing the work. I also figured out that I'm a quiet person, and that doesn't always get hired at a creative directive level. Whether or not it should.
Yeah.
But now I go find clients that like we appreciate each other, like the way that we work or the style of work. And so that's really fulfilling.
I think there's something interesting, you touched on that point of not always the quiet person. And I've worked for all manner of creative directors. And as we've talked more and more, I had a moment where I was like, I could totally see you being a creative director in that sense of like in a very good one for the right brand or like agency or something like that, because sometimes that quietness forces people to pay more attention to the person that storms into the room and bangs on desks and does that stereotypical kind of creative director thing.
Right.
Or tells everyone everything's wrong, And I don't know, maybe that's what the world needs a little bit more of.
We'll see.
We'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome guest. Thank you all for coming. This is a first Friday event, so make sure you check out Open Studios tonight in North Boulder. Andrew, are you having studios open? Yep. Cool. So all the studios in North Boulder, I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but a great way to go up and spend an evening looking at cool stuff. You can join us every first Friday. I know I've said it like 100 times, except for July, because that Friday will be 4th of July, and most people will be eating hot dogs or burning their faces off. But we are back in August with typographic-focused graphic designer Kevin Cantrell. That's going to be one not to be missed. Big thank you to our friends Buck Ross again for making this all happen. Josh at the Coffee Ride Coop Studios. And now you can catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple, please give us a follow or a download there. Also check us out on Caffeinated Mornings on Instagram, because that's how you actually really know when shows are coming. So if you follow that, you'll get reminders. And anyway, love you all. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next time.
You.